Hi, my name is Diana Davis. I live on Gaywood Lane. I've lived in Webster my entire life, apart from 10 years I spent in England. Recently moved back with my British husband in 2017. And I'm here tonight because for some time I've been increasingly concerned about the management of Webster's green space. I'm sure I'm not the only person that's raised this concern. I have conversations a lot with people that I work with, friends, family, and in the last 30 years, I think it has increasingly become an issue. I'm referring specifically to wooded lots and farmland not currently protected by parkland or purchase development status, or no longer protected through the now defunct open space preservation program, the tax credit thing. This green space has decreased within my lifetime to a fraction of what it once was, and what used to be, to my memory anyway, a lush, very sort of unique waterside community full of trees and fields. You speak to people in Webster today and it's becoming quote unquote another Henrietta. I feel it is full of so many tract housing developments and shopping plazas that we're losing the very qualities which have made Webster a place that is worth living, which made me move back from England with my husband. I appreciate that a certain amount of development is necessary, obviously, as the town grows. I also understand that Webster, in the past, in its parkland initiative and purchasing of development rights to certain plots of land, has historically taken some steps to prevent the access of development. But I feel we're getting the balance wrong. I feel that too much already has been lost. In my lifetime, I've seen Lowe's go up, I've seen the Holt Road Plaza go up. I know it's been amazing for the town, but that was a lot of woodland. A lot of animals live there. A lot of trees are lost. You just get this sinking feeling driving down Ridge Road. I mean, just now, the area next to Creekside. All right, nothing was being done with it, but the trees are stacked there like matchsticks. It's going to be what? Another store, another parking lot where it was woods. It just feels like a different place, and it doesn't feel good, okay? We seem to be moving in the opposite direction, hence the repeal of the tax incentive open space preservation initiative in 2010, which I admit I don't know why that was repealed. I don't know if something else just was placed, or if there are plans for something. I'm here as much to ask questions as to express my opinion. Trees and green space will always generate more revenue once they're cut down and paved over, but there is a cost to losing them, which is far deeper and, in my opinion, more lasting than any financial loss could ever be. The more we harm, and this is my philosophical side, our connection to nature by making our living environment increasingly unnatural, the more we harm ourselves. I would want to live in Henrietta. People want to live in Webster because it is still green. I'm here then to clarify the current administration's position on this issue, particularly in consideration of the upcoming November election. That's not a threat, that's just assuming that positions are going to be clarified. I'm asking what practical steps, if any, you guys have taken or would be committed to taking, be it the purchase of development rights, rezoning of particular plots of woodland, again, I don't even know if that's possible, currently in jeopardy, or some other initiative in order to adequately protect the existing green space in Webster, prevent it from future overdevelopment, and thereby preserve what remaining quality of life we have left.
Where would you like me to start?
Wherever you want to start.
Can I say something, Ron, before you start?
Go ahead.
Many years ago, we had an open space vote, $22 million, to be able to purchase up to 4,000 acres of land. It was voted down by the residents of Webster 2-1. Years later, we did it again, and it was smaller, a $5 million one, and that was approved. We've spent all that money and purchased all this land. But the one that would have really helped us and done a lot of the things, as you said, the residents of Webster did not want it.
I think Webster is changing. I would wonder if it would, not saying it would pass, but I don't think it would still be 2-1. And again, this isn't the fault of the town government so much as maybe the short-sightedness of the people. Now probably a lot of those people are the same people that are complaining that, oh, it's becoming another Henrietta. So, that is a fair point.
And it was all about taxes.
Right, I understand that. But I think it's becoming developed to a point where people would be willing to consider something, again, maybe you know, another $5 million, I don't know. I mean, I know what you're saying is that you've done it and it's been $5 million, but if you were proposing 20 million and that got turned down, could we not propose another smaller amount yet again that would still be under, you know, possibly also with people, a little bit of a raise or a little bit of a, you know, hike in taxes or whatever isn't going to feel, you know, so overwhelming if you can do it incrementally, you know, and just get a little bit more land. I don't know.
How many, do you know how many acres we have of open space?
I think it's 3,000 or something like that. I do appreciate that it is a good amount of open space. My point would be, though, that most of it also is concentrated sort of on the outskirts, so like by the lake, and you've got it, you know, maybe down towards like where Xerox is and stuff. And I would say that, you know, being in the town itself, again, like what I was saying, driving down Bridge Road, it just feels like you're in like an overdeveloped shopping plaza. It doesn't feel like you're driving through trees, you know, and I just think that we could be doing more to, like what you were saying, why not open it up to a vote? If it isn't gonna cost you guys, you know, if town residents are willing to pay for it, I think it would be something worth considering, particularly in advance of the upcoming elections. I know that it's on people's minds.
I would just also, I'm sorry, I would just also like to add that when we drive down Ridge Road, it also gets a bad rap, and that's where the, comparing it to Henrietta is. If you go to Henrietta, in all fairness to Henrietta as a town, there's a lot of residential areas, there's a lot of space in Henrietta, but we all know farmland. We all know Jefferson Road, and that's what we compare Ridge Road to. But part of the zoning in our town is to create a commercial corridor such as Ridge Road. It's all zoned commercial to stop that sprawl into other areas, to maintain the residential character of the other parts of the town.
What, is there anything in place for maintaining, you know, for instance, there is right now the wooded lot, I believe it's between Holt and Hard Roads, it's 40 acres of woodland. It's just zoned industrial. I mean,
65.
Okay, so, I mean, that's, you know, that is a significant, and so far we've only been talking about it in terms of, you know, our experience, our use, our convenience, but I do believe, you know, that there is some consideration for, you know, the natural element, you know, not to some
Let me explain
trees,
that
but,
property.
you know.
Let me explain that property to you.
Sorry?
Let me explain that property to you.
Okay.
Two people owned it. The wife passed away first, went into probate, and then the husband passed away. It went into probate, it's been there, it was in probate for about 2 to 3 years, okay? That's why it looks like it does today. It was ran down. It had to go to probate. Now, 3 investors have purchased the property. I've called them on the phone. They want $4.9 million for that 65 acres, okay? Mr. Dean said before, our last bond issue to capture 1,200 acres was $5.9 million, okay? The property is assessed at $950,000. So you're gonna overpay like 4 or 5 times of what the property's assessed. I'm gonna tell you right now, the people in Webster are not gonna go for that, okay? There is a proposal coming in soon for housing that's zoned for on that project. The only way Webster is going to, again, buy open space is to float a big referendum. Huge. Because the value of property has gone sky high. And what's happening is people want topped up. You talked about Ridge Road and the Hatch Road property. That is zoned commercial. The people that bought that bought it in 2001. They've been paying taxes, town, school, and county, for the last 19 years. And it's set there. There was a for sale sign on that property for over 10 years. Nobody bought it. Country Max came along and offered them a decent dollar to pay off what they paid in taxes. It's zoned commercial. That's what's going there.
Okay.
Anybody had the opportunity to buy that land if they wanted to pay the taxes and if they wanted to look at the trees. I'm not trying to be coarse here, but that's what's going on here. Is somebody has to put up the bucks to to watch the property. And I'm telling you, as much as I go door to door, you mentioned the election, nobody wants to pay any more in taxes.
How much realistically would it raise, I mean, how much did, for instance, the $5 million to pay the 1,200 acres? I get that it's not a great deal, but there's not a lot of wooded acres that size left in the center of Webster. You might be surprised if people like me were generating interest within the community and got a petition going and generated some form of willpower within the people, particularly in advance of the upcoming election, that people might be willing to, you know, what you're saying, they're not interested. Well, maybe they would be. I mean, what would it take to put something like that together? Again, I'm asking, you know, I'm new to this. I want to try. I know it sounds probably incredibly naive and futile or whatever, but, you know.
Some of the folks that own wooded lots, wooded acreage here in Webster, and are getting ready to sell because of their age, are telling us that they can get way more than assessed value by selling to developers. And that it's owned. There's a large parcel of property over on, between west of Holt Road, north of Shoemaker Road. There's a huge wooded lot there that backs up to Webster Park. That may in the next 5 years go on the market, and the people that Ron have talked to about, they can get a lot more money than we're willing to pay for it. We're willing to pay assessed value in generally, but they can get way more than that from developers.
Right. So if you're buying it from a private individual, I guess it doesn't matter, right, or a developer. Either way, it's the developers that are driving the cost of the land up. And you're relying upon the goodwill of the people and the willing. Because me personally, I would pay more taxes if I could preserve the green space. I mean, I know there are other people that think like me. Again, I am not an expert. I don't know if there are enough of us. But, you know, how did you...
We had a committee.
Right.
And we went around and we sat down and we looked at all the open spaces in the town of Webster.
2 years. I was
2
on the
years.
committee.
He was on it. And we started knocking on doors and we asked them if they were willing to sell the property at a reduced rate, not at market value. And this was many years ago. How many, Barry? 12, 15?
Well, 2000 was the first.
2000, okay, 19 years ago. That's not happening now. There is a property that's coming off the incentive next year, 76 acres. I've already called the guy on the phone, and I said to him, if you're gonna sell that land, let me know, because the town would be interested. We are being proactive all the time in this open space, okay? I'm calling people, I'm talking to people. I talked to the East Golf Course today, because I heard a rumor that they might be for sale. And I've again told them, if you're gonna sell that, call me on the phone, because I will do a referendum for it. I don't want it to go for houses. But I only have my voice. If they wanna sell it to a developer, and that's what's happening, because they're paying top up, you're not gonna get the land, no matter what you do. Because they're paying a lot more money than what we paid $7,000 an acre for some of this land in 2000. It's going for $25,000 an acre now.
Right.
You know, and to somebody that's had the land for 20 years and paid $40 a thousand right now, it's 41. It's going to be 41 when the school district announces their next increase in school taxes. It's $41 a thousand, town, school, and county per thousand. So if you take some vacant land times $41 a thousand, these people have to get that money back. They've been paying for it for years. They're not just going to give it to you. And that's the problem we're having now, because the taxes have gone up so much, and they continue to go up so much, that the people that own the open space have to get their money back. And
They can't afford to pay the taxes anymore.
They can't afford it. And what's happening is the developers have the money, and they're picking it up.
Right.
No matter, you know, what the town does. And would you pay $4.9 million for land over there that at 65 acres has about 14 to 15 acres of wetlands in there. Useless. Absolutely useless. For anything, building.
For its own sake, you know, that's kind of
What I'm
my
saying,
point.
what I'm saying is, it's worthless to build on.
Right.
But they will figure out a way to do something in there.
But
And
there's
that-
gotta-
The incentive plan, you talk about the incentive plan, the one that, we would love to have it back, but the state of New York says we can't have it. We are not the ones that can give exemptions.
Okay,
We can't give exemptions.
fair enough, yep.
That's what, exactly what that was.
Okay.
And the state is the only one that can give
Could
exemptions.
could we not, like, I mean, I'm thinking like, if you mention the fact, could you not come from an environmental angle, I'm talking about the 65 acres again.
Mhm.
Talk about wetlands, put pictures of birds on the poster. I mean, there's gotta be a way to get people interested in saving that land. I'm interested, I could go home and do posters right now and put them up all over town and be like, contact the town board, you know, please, ask for a referendum. You know, we need to save this land, 5 times the going cost, but save it from development, you know? I don't know, I mean,
I did put one up on Facebook a while back, and nobody wanted to pay $4.9 million. I had it up on Facebook, I can go look for it and bring it back up. But I asked people if they wanted to pay $4.9 million, and they didn't want to pay.
They thought you were crazy.
They thought it was crazy because it's only assessed for $950. You see, when you sell your house, are you going to get assessed value, or are you going to get more than assessed value? You're going to get as much as you want for your house when you sell it because you've made these improvements and you feel it's worth more.
but again, I think there's value to that land that if you again emphasize, you know, the wetlands in particular, the fact that it is so close to North Ponds and Webster Park, the fact that it is one of the last remaining woodland parcels within the center of the town, if you word it correctly, if you word it persuasively, you know, okay, yeah, it's 4.9 million, okay, yeah, Webster, the town needs your help to pay these developers over the going rate. You know, make it sound as special as it is.
Here's your other problem. It's called the New York State tax cap. Okay? New York State tax cap only allows the town board to spend X amount of money over the levy that they had the previous year. So this year alone, the town of Webster can only spend $604,000 more than we spent the year before. All capital improvements and all bonds that we take out go against the tax cap. If I go and bond $4.9 million with what we have today, we would be over the cap, okay? And we would have to raise taxes enormously.
And then not only would people be paying more taxes, but then they won't get their rebate check from Albany at the end of the year because we went over the tax cap. Not that that should sway any of us because it's such a small amount.
How much is the rebate?
Well, they're gonna
$338.
they'll pay more taxes, plus they'll lose
Plus
the
the
benefit of the
that's
check.
what I'm saying.
Right.
There's another issue too that wasn't raised, and I don't like to speak on these because this is a legal matter. And the fact is that we don't have a contract to purchase this property. The big difference between now and when they had the 2 referendums, that people had gone about, the committee, which was a large number of people, went around and got, I don't know, Barry, they got letters of
Yes.
understanding.
Yes.
There was a committee that started off, go ahead, Charlie, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, that there was an indication at least that they were willing to enter into a contract.
Right.
There's nothing like that here. We don't have any agreement with anybody that, yeah, if you give us 4.9 or if you take it to referendum, they may say, the owners might say, or the people who, the estate, may say, we're not gonna wait, we're gonna sell it, we have the right to do it, which they do. And there's no requirement that they give it to the town or sell it to the town.
Understood, but presumably.
That's a pretty big deal.
It is a big
You know,
deal, so you wouldn't put the cart before the horse, but you wouldn't necessarily assume, you know, that there's gonna be no cart at all. You know, I mean, presumably you could approach the developers with the intention, I know all of this is, maybe we'll come to
It's not the
naught.
developers, it's the people who own the land.
People will, I thought you said they already sold to developers, and the developers are the one that would be selling.
They've already sold it to both
Right, so
It's already sold.
developers would
They
be
sold it
approached.
to investors,
investors.
not developers.
And they have
Investors,
they have a
understood.
project which they're gonna be bringing in after the first year.
And they didn't sell it, I'm assuming, to just, you know, to hold on to the land. They're doing it so they can make a profit, or develop the land to make a profit.
When it comes to purchasing property like that, we're in competition with developers.
Which is, I mean, I think, which is why people need to stump up the cash if they care about their town. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've had conversations with who complain until they're blue in the face, you know, about this very issue. But, you know, honestly, I don't think that every citizen is just out to keep their taxes low. I do think you'd be surprised at how many people would be prepared to sacrifice for,
How much?
well,
How much?
how much would it cost?
No, I'm asking you how much. Because that, people tell me that all the time. Oh, I don't mind to pay a few cents.
I would
Okay.
pay, honestly, I would pay several hundred a month for this. I would pay as much as I can afford. That's how much I believe in this. I don't want to see Webster turn. I don't want to see all that land lost. I think it's horrible.
But I don't know what.
Which land now are you,
What
do
land
you have
you
any
talking
land in your mind?
I do, I'm thinking in particular of that acreage between the Holt and the Hard Road exits.
At the end
With
of
the wetland, yeah.
Orchard Street?
It's, yes, with the
Okay.
woods, yeah. I know there are other plots, but we
Orchard
kind of
Road.
touched on this. So it's like when you're on Holt Road and you get on the expressway,
It's in the notes.
there's a big sign that
Orchard
says
Street.
available zone industrial or
I'm
something
talking
like
about
that.
where it meets Holt Road.
So it's the old
That's
Webster
where,
lumberyard.
that's where Webster
Yeah.
Lumber is.
Oh, where Webster.
Are we talking about the
It's
same
before
plot?
you get to Hard Road, it's going towards
Yes.
Hard from Holt.
Yes.
Yeah,
And it's a large portion of wooded land.
it's already been spoken for. It's
Okay.
already been spoken.
So the 65 acres was something else you were talking about?
No, where the lumberyard was, the old buildings there now?
I don't see any buildings, I just see woods. This is by, you know, when you're getting on 104.
Along the expressway.
I think she's referring to the signs that are where the apartment complex is. If you're still along 104,
Oh,
on the
along
north
there?
side where those new apartments are going in,
Yes.
there are still signs that I'd asked them to remove that says land for
Yes,
sale.
there's so much wetlands in there that I don't think that could, I'm just saying, there's so much wetlands in there.
Yes,
Is that,
So much.
Is that separate from the other piece?
Yes.
yes.
okay, so this piece that we're talking about at this very time is a piece along the expressway
Yes.
that's zoned office
She's
park.
referring to. The signs,
There's
yes.
a big sign there.
That's
Yeah.
zoned office park.
Sign's been there forever?
Yeah. It's an old
Yeah.
sign.
It's an old sign.
Yeah.
That land there is so wet. And that gentleman lives in New York City. He calls me all the time for the town to buy it. And I said I would pay assessed value.
Right.
But he found out what CDS was purchased by, but for, like 25,000 an acre, and that's what he wants. Well, the town's not gonna pay $25,000 an acre. It's way over assessment, way over. And it's not responsible planning on the town's part to pay that much money. It's just not.
If it's only gonna.
And it's only wetlands in there. It's terribly wet.
Right, so you couldn't develop on it, and that would be the
No,
point
they're not.
of
And I wouldn't
purchasing
pay
it,
25,000
to protect
acres.
it.
But the chances are also that he's not gonna be able to sell
No,
it.
he's right.
He can't.
It's not gonna be developed.
He hasn't sold it because it's so wet. And I tell you, the piece behind the gas station is there. I know the gentleman that owns it. He's already clear cut it. He can't sell that. He's already taken the trees out. He did that years ago. And it's wet in there. He can't sell that.
It's floodplain.
Floodplain. He
You
cannot
can't
sell
build
that.
on
He
it.
cannot,
Right.
he cannot sell that piece of land. They cannot sell that piece of land.
Didn't you say though that there was other acreage, I'll wrap it up, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for answering all of my
No problem.
questions and enlightening me here. Didn't you say that there was acreage though within something that, were we talking about the same piece of land at that point?
Where the lumberyard is, do you know where the lumberyard is? You go down Holt Road on the
Yeah.
left-hand side, there's a whole bunch of buildings there before the Hojack
Right
Trail.
by Orchard Street.
Right, and that also has wetland in it.
Yes.
Yes,
And you were saying though that that has been spoken for
That's been
despite the
purchased.
fact that it has a large amount of wetland. So how did that presence of wetland then, in
Because
that
they're gonna
instance,
work
not
on it.
guaranteed?
Because that's a much larger piece.
It's 65 acres.
65 acres with,
right,
how many acres of wetlands?
They're only
about
allowed
14.
About 14, so
a small amount of wetlands. They're regulated, so
Right.
they'll work in between the gaps.
I see.
But
So,
the strip that you're talking about along the expressway is just a swamp.
okay, right.
There's really no developable land there.
So it's not at this point, in your opinion, at risk of being sold?
It would be unlikely.
And we just took in 85 acres over on State and Salt Road as part of the development. We look for pieces all the time. We just took North Ponds Park, I don't know if you know it or not, but North Ponds Park was part of New York State. We were able to acquire that for the town of Webster for free. This board has continued to look for open space all the time since I've been on it. Okay? And we got 3,129 acres the last time I looked at the map.
Okay.
Okay? And
it
that
sounds-
does not include Webster Park.
Right. And it sounds like the impediment to, continuing acquisition is the unwillingness or the perceived unwillingness of people to pay over the asking price,
Right.
basically. Because you're saying that you wouldn't do it because that would be too much of a,
I don't know how much more you can afford in taxes here at the town of Webster, seriously, I'm speaking for all the residents, and when I go door to door, that's what I hear. They're not telling me to go buy open space,
Well,
they're telling me to keep the taxes
people
down.
live pretty well here. I think you go out to dinner a couple times less every month and you have more trees. I believe personally.
That's not a good argument.
And just so you know, the planning board does use various tools available for preservation of trees. It's called cluster development, and that takes the same number of units you would have built normally, condenses them into smaller lots, so that we do preserve large quantities of trees around each subdivision. So that's something the town board supports, and it is saving trees. It's not to the extent I think you're looking for, but we do try to do that.
No, I appreciate that. All right, one last question. How much would, let's say hypothetically, in, Cloud Fairyland, you were like, yep, we're gonna purchase that, let's say the wetland, right, that we're assuming nobody's gonna buy, that's, I don't know how much you said it was gonna be, 4.5 million or something. Let's say that you went ahead and we were like, yep, as a town, we're gonna do it, we've got it, they're gonna sell it, whatever. How much would that raise everybody's tax?
I'd have to go figure it out. I can't tell you right now, without figuring it out.
Back when we, in 2000, the 4,000 earmarked acres of land was gonna, by the time all 4,000 were purchased, was gonna raise each homeowner's tax rate about $95
A year,
a year.
for 20 years.
Yes. Okay, that's what it was gonna be.
That was then.
And that was back in 2000. And we spent 2 years, this committee, identifying open space, identifying land that could be developed and that we might purchase, and we talked to them, we walked the property, we talked to the homeowners, we spent 2 whole years doing this. It was very well prepared, it was just too big. It was $22 million, and the residents came out in droves to vote it down.
To the one.
It was unbelievable. The vote was at State Road School, and people stood out in the parking lot for 2 hours in line to come vote no.
I don't know if we're the same town though, as we were in 2000. I think there are a lot more people who are a lot more environmentally conscious now. Maybe I'm being naive. I could be.
Well, it certainly is a different town than when you were here 10 years ago.
That's what I'm saying. I would like to go away and do some research, do a petition. I'll stand outside North. I don't care. I want to find out how people feel. If I could get a figure from somebody as to how much, let's say hypothetically, purchasing this piece of swamp, right, would cost to preserve that space, like, presumably it's not gonna raise as much as 95, but maybe it will. If you say that was a $22 million deal, did you say, that would have raised everybody $95? Now we've got a larger population than we had in 2000, so that should be kind of commensurate with the increase in property value. And especially if you're only proposing 5 as opposed to 22, I would be surprised if people weren't willing to pay an extra $50 or $80 a year.
The other thing that I think we're missing in the conversation of what if we did this today as opposed to how it was done in 2000 is that we shouldn't be buying it piecemeal and just say, oh, look at that whole strip of trees, we don't want to lose those.
Right.
Should something like that come around again, we really need, and it takes forever for things to get from the committee, I get it. But we really would need someone to go out and identify specific properties that are value to the town and where their location is, as opposed to a piece here and a piece over there. And it's a much better bang for our buck if we were to do something like that. So, I think
Well, both the referenda were earmarked for certain specific
Exactly.
properties,
If it
down to the
identified.
acreage, they were, right, the addresses, the
Yes.
acreage, the tax account numbers, and willing sellers.
Because, I mean, we're stewards of the people's money, and they really need to know what we're spending that on.
Right.
We
Yeah.
can't we just can't pass a blanket, $5 million bond and say, well, we're gonna buy it as it comes up.
Okay.
Besides that, we intertwined the open space that we bought with the trail system,
Right, yep.
okay? So there was a lot of planning and a lot of thought going into what pieces we were buying on Whiting Road, on Vosburg, and that, so that we could match it all up. 4 Mile Creek, we bought 76 acres down there. We're still trying to get the piece that's left down there,
Yeah, because isn't there also
There's a
something
little
that's
piece
gonna
down there that we're
expire
still
from
trying to
the,
get.
yeah,
but the guy wants $5,000 an acre, okay? It's assessed for way under that. So are we gonna overpay for a piece? And so far, no, we're not gonna overpay.
could you argue though that the assessed values are becoming outdated now that the property is valued so highly in Webster?
Oh, we're gonna do a rebuild.
Less land's available.
There's $28,000 in this year's budget to start the rebuild, yes, we're gonna do that.
All right.
And then come back and talk to me when your house goes up 10 to 15% assessment.
But you know what though,
Because
but
it's gonna
then
happen.
what people are asking for the property that is of interest in preserving won't then be this perception. I mean, it's all kind of this weird logic, but then if it won't be under, or so far over the assessed value.
Everything's gonna go up.
One of the great successes of our last open space purchase was that on Vosburg Road, the big field, the big woods, Gosnell,
Yep,
and over on Whiting Road.
yep.
They donated some of that property, and we purchased some of that property. That was primed for development. That big field was primed for development.
Okay, I'm just gonna say one more thing, I know I said it before, but I just would like to maybe suggest that, if you've had a committee in the past, right, to look at acquiring open spaces, I feel like maybe that should be something that's ongoing, because development is ongoing, so you need its counterbalance.
Okay?
Okay, thank you so much.